When I was first wanting to get into starting my own seeds, I would get super overwhelmed because I would like listen to all the podcasts and like search all the things about seed starting. It was really complicated and overwhelming. Basically, starting seeds is just like anything else in homesteading and gardening, etc. You can make it as complicated or as simple as you want. And I feel like I found a good middle ground. We've tried a lot of things. We've had a lot of failures with seed starting. But today I'd really like to share with you some of the essentials, like the barest necessities, things that I think are really necessary to have really great seeds, and it's really easy. The two main reasons that I really wanted to get into seed starting was just simply, number one, it saves a lot of money. Probably if you've been to a greenhouse, you know that seedlings can be pretty expensive, and if you're putting in a massive garden for your family, it can really add up, and a package of seeds usually isn't that expensive. The other thing was just I felt like it was another step towards self-sufficiency, especially if you save your seeds from your garden the year before. Full transparency, I'm not very good at that yet. It's one of those things that I just haven't felt like I had a ton of time for, and I haven't researched it well, but it's definitely on my bucket list for the coming years. I did save a few seeds last year. I saved some butternut squash seeds and I think maybe some flowers, but not a ton. The first piece of seed starting that I personally think is probably almost the most essential is really good quality soil. You want something that doesn't have a ton of like wood chunks and pieces in it. You want something that's really fine. I really like the soils that have the white pieces in it. They really help to hold moisture in and make so that you don't have to water quite so often. We use a soil called Penn Valley Organic Potting Soil, and it's like pretty much the best of the best. You don't have to have that. We get it from a local greenhouse. It's not something that you can just go to the store, the grocery store, and buy. You have to, I think, get it through a dealer maybe, but we have a greenhouse close to us where we get this, so if you can get your hands on it, great. If not, it's not necessary to have this certain potting soil. But basically, you just want something that's good quality, not just like peat moss or something, and we've tried that. It doesn't work very well at all. You really want to hydrate your soil before you put it into your pots. You don't want to just put dry potting soil into your pots, plant your seeds in it, and then try to pour water over it. The water just kind of runs off. When you hydrate your soil, you want it to be like very, very damp, but you don't want to like be able to squeeze it and have water drip off. You want it to still be able to like run through your fingers. One of the most essential things for a seed to germinate is to have constant moisture around it, and so you definitely want damp soil to plant your seeds into.
We have tried doing like our own mixes, like using soil from our garden mixed with other stuff. I tried soil blocking. I didn't have all the right like equipment for that, and I don't remember if I followed the recipes like exactly as what people said to do, but none of that worked out very good for us at all. And so what we're doing now has worked really, really well. This way of doing it is what I would really recommend for beginner especially. Once you get into it, learn how some of the things work and whatever, maybe get into soil blocking and mixing your own stuff. But to start off with, for sure, just get a really good high quality potting soil and put it in little pots.
The next essential, in my opinion, is to have some really good containers with really good drainage for your seedlings. I prefer something that's actually intended for seedlings. I see people planting things in egg cartons and like random plastic containers of all shapes and sizes. And I mean, it can work. You can like poke holes and stuff in the bottom of plastic containers if you're really trying to save money. But one thing that you have to keep in mind is that random containers are going to take up a lot of space under your grow light. And so in the end, I don't think it's going to save you that much money because you're going to have to buy more grow lights. You can't have plants on the outside edges of your grow light because the seedlings will like lean in towards the light. We got a whole bunch of these from a greenhouse and I reuse them every single year. I mean, they're kind of old and beat up. I don't care. There's also some really great options out there for reusable seed cells. They're very sturdy. We've definitely considered them, but we have these right now, so we'll probably just use these up. Another thing that I really like to do for some of my plants like peppers and especially flowers and herbs and things like that, I like to plant them into a nice big container with good drainage. I just like sow all the seeds in here and then I will transplant them into these seed cells after they've germinated. And the reason I do that is just because if you put one seed into each of these holes, often like one or two of them won't germinate, and then you have a lot of wasted space because you have cells that are empty. The other advantage to planting them like this and then transplanting them into a seed tray is that you can pick out the hardiest seedlings and plant only those into your seed cells. The other thing about planting them into a small space like this is I really like to put saran wrap or some kind of covering over them to keep the moisture in and create a greenhouse effect for germination. And it's much easier to just cover a few containers like this than to cover an entire tray, especially if you are working with seeds that are a few years old. I really like the method of planting them into a separate container first because germination often just isn't as good when the seeds are a few years old. It got way too windy outside, so I guess I have to move indoors. This year I'm continuing to focus on getting minerals into myself and also my kids. Minerals help with so many functions in the body like digestion and hormone regulation as well as clear skin, just to name a few. Tears and I still have some digestive issues that we are trying to clear up. So I'm really working hard on getting these minerals in for us, but it can be harder when you're trying to get them into children. Of course, we are eating lots of nutrient-dense foods from our farm, homegrown veggies, grass-fed butter, beef tallow, beef liver, things like that. But I do also really love to supplement some minerals here and there. One super simple way that I have been getting minerals into my kids is by adding an element packet to a batch of granola bars. There's a chocolate element as well as an unflavored element that go really well with granola bars, and my kids absolutely love it. The raspberry flavored element also goes super well into smoothies with our homegrown raspberries, and if there's any extra smoothie, I pour it into these popsicle molds and the kids will enjoy it throughout the week. What I love the most about Element is the simple ingredients. There's no sugar, no colorings, no fillers, no gluten, none of the bad stuff, only the good stuff. Right now, Element is offering the More Than Farmers community a free sample pack of 8 single serving packets with any order. This is a really great way to try 8 different flavors for yourself or share Element with a friend. You can get this deal at drinkelement.com/morethanfarmers. The only way to get this is through the link. So go to drinklmnt.com/morethanfarmers. All right, this year I am going to plant 4 different kinds of tomatoes. Carolina Gold, which is like a big yellow slicer. They're beautiful tomatoes. Cherry tomatoes, which is Sun Gold. I tried some new varieties last year and I just came right back to the Sun Gold. They're just so good. And then Amish Paste, which is my all-time favorite paste tomato for making sauces, and Celebrity Plus. For my tomatoes, I am just going to plant them directly into the seed cells because they germinate really well. Sometimes I will pop like 2 seeds in and then I'll just like pull one of them. Most of these are brand new seeds, so I'll probably just pop one in. You don't want to plant your seeds too deep. One mistake I've made in past years is planting my seeds way too deep and then they just didn't come up because they were down so far. One thing that I always do to keep from like way over planting like I have done in past years, I write out exactly how many of each variety that I want. I find that if I don't do that and then I like way over plant, I have too many seedlings and then it's so hard to get rid of them when I can't fit them all in my garden. And so I just try to plant only as many as I need, give or take a few. I usually do a few extra. And always, always, always label your seed cell trays right after you plant them. I'm just using some popsicle sticks this year. Hopefully these will work. So I think this year I'm only going to plant like a dozen tomato plants instead of 15. That's a few less. I still want to do tons of canning for my tomatoes, but I have a lot of leftovers. And so I'm not going to have to do quite as many gallons of sauces this year. So one thing that just completely blows my mind every single year at seed starting time is how simple, I guess you could say, gardening is. And just hang in there with me for a minute. I know that gardening is hard work and all the things, but like when you condense it down, it's just like putting a seed into dirt, giving it water and sunshine, and it will give you food. And I think that is such a miracle. And so right here in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tiny little seed cells, we have enough tomatoes to feed our family of 6 for an entire year plus. Every single year at seed starting time, I just get hit fresh with the reality that I'm partnering with a miracle. It's so amazing and it's so much fun, so fulfilling. So this year I am going to be doing 4 different kinds of peppers. I'm going to be doing Big Red, which is like a giant red pepper, Orange Blaze, which is my favorite, Jimmy Nardello, which is Cody's personal favorite,
So good.
and California Wonder, which is just a normal average green pepper. We eat peppers mostly just fresh, and then I also do some in salsa. So I'm not gonna plant a ton. I have written down 7, but I'll probably end up planting a few less than that. But I'm for sure gonna start that many seedlings just so I have them if I need them. I am going to start the Jimmy Nardello peppers in a separate container because I've had major issues with the Jimmy Nardello peppers germinating. I'm not sure why. They're just a little bit more difficult to germinate than some other peppers that I've tried. So I'm just gonna go ahead and plant them in here. Then I will transplant these once they have come up.
And it's so worth it.
One thing you really want to do is tamp the soil down. The contact of the soil and moisture with the seed is really important for germination, I have found. Our all-time favorite way of using fresh peppers is to make a mixture of cream cheese and shredded cheese and then some herbs and salt and put that inside of the pepper and then slice the pepper. So good. For peppers, I always put 2 seeds into each little cell because I find that peppers, they take longer to germinate than tomatoes, and I also feel that they're just a little bit more finicky, and I have the best success when I put 2 into each hole. I'm really excited to see how these Big Red peppers do. These are my first year trying those. Peppers are another really great thing for beginners. They're super simple and they're very hearty, but they're very satisfying. Like there's nothing more satisfying than bringing in this massive, like beautiful colored pepper. So I always tell beginners, if you really want something satisfying, start with peppers. Super easy. They don't really have bug or disease issues at all. The thing that I am the most excited about this year, I think, is I am begging Cody to make a raised bed for me. I really want to put a nice big herb garden, like raised bed up here in the front garden. It's close to the house. I can run out when I'm cooking. I want to do dill, oregano, basil, chamomile, sage, calendula, echinacea, just a bunch of different herbs to put up there in the front garden. Some of them take a long time to germinate and they're harder to get going. So I'll just buy those at a greenhouse. I already started oregano, calendula, and chamomile. So today I'm doing dill as well as parsley and basil. I have been told that you can just scatter dill seeds out in your garden, direct sow them. I tried last year and they did not come up, so I'm just gonna start them inside. The seeds are very, very tiny, and I just think it's easier to start things like that inside. I'm going to start my basil over here in a different container and then transplant into seed cells. I feel like basil seeds are so tiny, they're just a bit more finicky. One thing I told Cody last night when I was giving a little speech trying to convince him to make me a raised bed. I think it was pretty effective. I just told him, and I'm actually serious about this, but I just told him that it feels, if I could grow medicine for my family on top of food, like that would take the whole feeling of fulfillment to a whole new level. So I love herbs. Like I'm the girl who will sit and read an herbal book like from beginning to end. So the camera did not catch my face when I opened the nasturtium seed packet. I've been working with these tiny seeds and these seeds are massive and I totally died when I saw them. I don't know why it was so funny to me. But I'm definitely gonna be planting these directly into the seed trays. I had no idea nasturtiums had massive seeds. It's like the size of a pea or a dried bean or something. So I'm doing nasturtiums this year because I've had different people telling me how they help with pests in the garden. And my mom used to plant these as well. And so I was like, hey, why not? I can plant these, you know, in and among the raised beds and stuff. So the only other flowers that I'm doing this year are tulips. And then also a subscriber sent us some asters. And so I am going to try germinating some asters. They look absolutely beautiful. They are salmon Jemima. Thank you so much to whoever it was that sent the asters. I can't remember the name anymore that was with the card because it was quite a few months back, but we really appreciate that. Obviously, if everybody sends us seeds, we can't grow all of them, but it's really exciting to see the things that bring joy to other people as well. These asters are very tiny seeds, and so I'm going to start them over here. I might actually give some of these to my mom as well, because I won't have room for all of these. My best tip for beginners when germinating seeds is cover them with saran wrap or put them in a container that has a lid like this. Save your berry boxes. It helps so much with germination. It creates this like misty greenhouse effect in there, and you can germinate peanut M&Ms if you cover them with saran wrap.
Doubt it.
Try it. So obviously there's tons of things that I'm going to plant in my garden other than these seeds, but a lot of them I can just direct seed into my garden. One thing I'm still on the fence about is cucumbers and squash. I have an issue with birds coming and picking cucumber seeds and butternut squash seeds out of the little hills when I plant them directly outside, which I just cover them with a bucket. A lot of people have been telling me though that if I start them inside, they can get a better start outside and be more mature by the time the bugs come out. So I'm thinking maybe I'll try growing them inside. I don't know yet. I am going to make a list for you guys and put it in the description box of all the things I plant inside and then the things I plant outdoors, like direct seed into the garden. I know that it can be really confusing for beginners to know like what they should plant inside and what they can plant outside. So I just thought I'd make it easy for you guys and make a list of the things that I do. Another thing I really wanted to say for beginners, I know that this can look overwhelming to start all of your own seeds. One thing that I would recommend is for the first year, just start some seeds and just keep in mind that this is an experiment and that there's a greenhouse available if you fail. So just take the pressure off of yourself. There's absolutely no shame in using a greenhouse. I used a greenhouse for years before I started actually growing my own seedlings. I had toddlers who would get into my seedlings and all the things, and so I just didn't try. You can still have an amazing garden and you are still doing a wonderful thing even if you use a greenhouse. The other essential that you need for growing seedlings is going to be a warm room. A lot of people will use a heating pad and they'll put it underneath their seedlings to make sure that the temperature is nice and even and everything. Honestly, I have never done that. I don't find it to be necessary. I've heard that germination rates are better if you use a heating pad. I keep them in our living room, right close to a heater. The temperature is pretty even and stable in here. Basically, what you don't want to do is put your seedlings into your basement or something where it's chilly. There are a few things that I get at a greenhouse every single year. A few of those things are cabbage and broccoli. I just find that cabbage and broccoli from a greenhouse do better for me somehow. They're just a little bit finicky. They get really leggy very quickly. And as for onions, I'm doing an experiment this year. I got half of my onion plants from Berlin Seed Catalog, and then the other half I'm growing here at home, and I'm just gonna compare them, see how they do. And if the ones that I started here at home work, I'll definitely be doing that in the future because they're super, super easy.
This grow light here is not gonna be able to go far enough up once these plants start really growing, so I need to move this up, and unfortunately this little table is like just a couple inches too short for it to sit on top. I'm just going to add these boards on the end. Along with the other things that Michelle was talking about, a grow light is one of the most important things to successfully grow your seed starts. A lot of people will try to grow them in front of a window. We tried that for a while. It can kind of work, but the plants would just get leggy. They'd all lean towards the window because they're wanting that light. It's best to have that light directly over them, like Michelle was saying earlier. We've also tried growing our seedlings in a little greenhouse outside. It's what we use now to raise our broiler chicks. The problem with that is that the conditions don't stay really good. It might be sunny, it might be cloudy, the temperature fluctuates, and we've just found that it works so much better to raise our seedlings indoors and then to use a grow light. We've used this grow light here for several years now and it has lasted very well, and I will put a link for it in the description. This is a 4-foot grow light, and this has always been enough space for us to grow all of our seedlings as long as we keep things in efficient size containers like Michelle was talking about earlier. One thing that Michelle does is every time she waters these, she flips the containers around so that not the same plants are getting the most direct light all the time, and the ones on the outside might barely be getting enough, but they get switched around often enough that they're all getting a very even amount of light.
This right here makes me happy. That's all I can say. This is therapy. This makes me happy. I'm so excited for spring now. Not like I wasn't excited for it before.
Garden season is coming, and it's time to start preparing even beyond starting your seeds. There are a few things that we definitely would not want to do without in the garden, and we talk about them in this video right here, so be sure to watch that one next.